over here, and I'm not going to do my best at crowd estimates, but there are a number of people lining up here. That's where the security checkpoints are, and we'll just have to see how big it gets and whether or not the weather cooperates. David?
A lot of green grass around one Hans Nichols. General McCaffrey, let me turn to you. You are, of course, an infantryman, somebody who spent some time southwest of Savannah, Georgia, in your time with the U.S. Army. That is where these armored vehicles that Hans was just talking about came from, made their way to Washington, D.C. I want to read a quote here from the Washington Post, if I could. The military brass have reacted to the partisan squabbling by hiding out and hoping it all blows over. Give us your read here of how you've watched, what you've observed of the Pentagon's reaction to the celebration that the president has planned.
Yeah, well, David, I think you made the most important point. The armed forces do not want to get drawn into a political divisive event. We have laws prohibiting us from endorsing, from participating in political events. So I think that's the only concern. There is an element of hysteria about the whole day, which I think the president probably likes. You know, 2 M1 tanks and 2 Bradley fighting vehicles are hardly the stuff of Red Square or Kim Jong-un's annual military parade. The flyover is probably fun for participants to see. It happens all over the country all year long. I listened to one of my colleagues talk about how sad it is the soldiers don't get a day off. We have hundreds of thousands of soldiers and airmen and sailors and Marines all over the face of the earth right now on duty. So I think the bottom line is this is all a great event if the president doesn't make a divisive speech. And in addition, I think, you know, there's an element of hope that he'll stick to a script and not attack the Democrats.
How optimistic are you, General, on that note that that's going to happen in light of what you've read going into this event, what you've seen the president tweet about, what he said about his hopes for this event? Hans Nichols bringing up the point this could all fall apart if the weather turns as it might this evening with a 50% chance of thunderstorms. But your optimism, I guess I should say, that this isn't going to be about one Donald J. Trump.
Oh, no, I think it will be about Donald J. Trump. I think that was the whole intent of it. And it's a jarring change from the past when we just had that wonderful evening concert of patriotism and songs down in the Capitol Hill. I think that's exactly what it is. You know, again, the only question is, will the president use it as a campaign rally, attacking people? My guess is no. He'll recognize the critics are ready to pounce anyway. So, you know, let's just keep our fingers crossed that it's another nice day in Washington. That city loves its annual 4th of July celebration. And hopefully we'll have not a bunch of counter demonstrators and angry rhetoric, but instead remembering the 243rd birthday of this unbelievable experiment in democracy.
Hear, hear. Hans Nichols, I have been down there for the 4th of July in years past when I lived down in Washington, D.C. What do we know exactly what's going to happen here? I've seen a lot of how hastily this was put together, how the agencies have cooperated or not. Here we are just a few hours out from when this is supposed to start. What do we know at this point? What do we know of who is going to be there? I'm going to quote from Politico here. White House officials and allies are wringing their hands over the risk of the hastily arranged event morphing into Trump's inauguration 2.0, in which the size of the crowd and the ensuing media coverage do not meet the president's own outsized expectations for the event. While the RNC is trying to use Trump's speech to woo high-end donors, few, if any, seem to want the tickets because they had already escaped D.C. What do we know of the program itself?
Well, just real quick on the back and forth, there's a little bit of backbiting, at least anonymously in the papers between the Department of Interior and the Department of Defense. They both seem to be laying the predicate for if this does go badly, who's going to get blamed. But in terms of who we think is going to be here, we think the service chiefs are going to be here. Now, some of them are traveling. We expect Mr. Esper could potentially come. He is the acting Secretary of Defense who the president wants to nominate formally and have him be the full Secretary of Defense, as well as the chairman of the Joint Staff. In general, for members of the military, when they appear with the president, and this happens all the time, to General McCaffrey's point, whether or not it's the Army-Navy football game or at a commencement address, they get up on stage with the president, and the president sometimes tries to stay within the bounds, and other times he goes and makes it a little more political. To General McCaffery's point about this being slightly different, it's true there are flyovers all over the country. We know the president, though, particularly likes flyovers because, remember, just a couple weeks ago, outside of the White House, they had those F-35s do the demonstrations for the Polish president. So it's clear the president likes these demonstrations, and we'll just have to see about the crowds and the overall tenor and tone of this. You've been here before. I don't want to make too many suggestions on the fact that it's still green here, in part because it's early. And if you're getting here 6 hours in advance for an event that's going to be starting once the sun starts going down, either you really see the president or you are just immune to the heat because it is very hot out here.
And
David?
the humidity, which we all know so well. Hans Nichols on the National Mall. General Barry McCaffrey joining us from Seattle as well. Happy 4th of July to both of you.
Same to you.
Well, several 2020 Democrats are headlining 4th of July parades across Iowa today, shaking as many hands as they